Live, this is Graham in the Pitchdeck Asia studio. We are joined by Rajiv Lamba from Neurosensum. Rajiv, welcome back.
Thanks, Graham. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you again. Last time at E27 in the exhibition hall.
Absolutely.
And bit of a story there as well. We were chatting. If you caught the interview with Rajiv the last time, we talked a little bit about you coming to Singapore from Indonesia, originally from where in the world?
India.
India, which part?
Northern Delhi. North of India, which is there's a place called Faridabad. It's near Delhi.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many years have you been out of India?
I think now 15 years now.
15 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Welcome to Singapore, by the way. 6 months in. Good. So we're going to talk about your journey, how the product came into being, and your background as well. Before we jump into the pitch deck, we are talking about research today, effectively, right? The world of research. I mean, you come from the traditional world, the Nielsens of this world.
Yeah.
What was changing in that world at the moment? Help us understand, this has been around a very long time.
Right.
Everything from the early days when people did polling, even with the clipboards in the early days, to analysis, writing reports. How has it evolved in these years that you've been in it?
I think to some extent it is evolving right now. Okay, for many years it was pretty similar. So of course people moved from pen and paper into a tablet based research, but I think there's still the entire issues with all the research was traditionally that I'm asking you and you're telling me what you feel.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times in reality, consumers, they don't tell you their emotions, right? You always wonder that I hope that I can understand what they're thinking. So that is something I think which has been relatively happening new as a trend changer in a way. And I think that's what neuroscience is all about. So, which is what our one of the product does, which goes beyond the traditional understanding or a rational understanding. So I think that's one of the key trends that I see which has been picking up around the world. And I think second trend that I've been kind of picking up, which is how can we make research more affordable? So if you look at the consultancy, a lot of time it's only the big enterprises which can afford consulting. You go to the SMEs, they want it. It's not that they don't want research, but they don't have that much of budget to pay. So the idea that how can you make research more real time, more affordable? So that's where Surveysensum comes about, So I think these are a couple of big trends which are happening. And the third big trend I think is all about big data, which is, how can you make better sense of the data that you've got within the organization. So these are three big trends, I'll say, which are emerging in the market research.
Great. And told like a researcher as well, breaking it down into easily understandable bite-sized chunks. Great. I like let's unpack some of those as well, and we'll jump into the pitch deck. The first bit I find really fascinating. As a marketer myself, one of the things that I learned early on is that people buy on emotion and justify with logic.
Right.
So, I bought this phone because of the functionality. That's what I'm telling you. But the reality is maybe I wanted to look cool or impress somebody or not feel left out.
Right.
These sort of emotional decisions are really, the drivers of why people buy. Yet what you've said is for years and years, we've asked people, why did you buy that phone? And they're not going to tell you the real reason because it's too raw. It's too embedded in their own psyche and, their sort of like emotional issues and so on. Yet this is why people buy. How has that changed then in recent years? Why are we now looking at that level when we've always kind of known that, we buy on gut instinct many times?
Right. So I think, with the advent of technology now, I think we are lucky that there are a few things which have emerged now, which is, like a facial expressions or the entire brain mapping where you can read the brain responses like a neurologist does in a way.
Yeah.
So I think the entire subconscious understanding has started evolving in the last couple of 2 or 3 years, I believe, which has moved away from a simple system to thinking, which was completely conscious based. I think with more computer vision, neuroscience coming in, I think now we are able to get a deeper insight versus what was lacking before.
Yeah.
And I think it's catching up like a wildfire in a way. Of course, it started from US and Europe and trying to move coming into Asia right now. So I think I believe this is looking very, very exciting for us as an industry.
And will that actually change how people make products or market those products?
I think it is. So I think even if you look at the neuromarketing, it's a very newly evolved field. I think all of us knew that people buy on emotions, right? So I think if you can understand those emotions better and you can understand the triggers better, and of course their entire way of marketing changes completely to what it was before. And your completely consumer understanding changes a big time, isn't it? Where you were completely taking decisions based on what they were saying.
Yeah.
Now you know what they're saying and you know what they're thinking. So you're now able to add a layer on what they're saying.
Has there been any sort of big case study examples, not necessarily with your company, but generally in this area, where people have said, look, that was built, that product, on the basis of they did some emotional insight or neurological research, for example, and they discovered this, and that was their finding. Has there been those sort of cornerstone case studies that people have referred to and built on?
Many of them. I will not get into a specific example because of the confidentiality that we carry. But I think coming back to the way entire Southeast Asia is, I believe very much Asia Pacific. So traditionally when we ask consumers on a scale, which is a claim data or conscious mind, that on a scale of 1 to 5, give me a rating. And we have done many, many examples in Indonesia per se. That's where we started with, where people are giving you a response of 4, 5, 4, 5, and across 3 thematics or 3 packagings. Some of the testing that we have been doing, the scores, they look very similar.
Yeah.
But the moment you get into eye tracking, you get into brain signals, you can understand the difference in the data across the stimuli. And you can completely understand, this is standing out because people are liking this more. Your brain is responding much more to a particular stimuli, which is the entire attention of the brain. And that's where we are able to make a big differences, right from advertising testings to the packaging testing.
Yeah.
Or the entire UX designs.
You mentioned something before we jump into the pitch deck, is like asking people for conscious mind reviews, right? Effectively of, it could be an advert, it could be Deliveroo, for example.
Yeah.
As increasingly you're getting used to it as a consumer, that everything is 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So if something's actually 4.0 as a review, that might actually be quite a bad review because, I don't know, people don't like giving negative feedback in public. They worry about the consequences, they worry about the ramifications of that kind of behavior. So they either don't do it or just give them a 4 rather than a 5. So what's happening is the conscious mind review system is becoming ineffective in a way. It's not telling us what the reality is. Did people really like that or did they hate it? We don't know.
Right.
And often if they hated it, they give no review.
Absolutely.
So it's not giving us the full picture. So we've got to go a bit deeper, right? So hopefully you're going to take us there today.
Sure,
so
definitely.
we can understand it. Let's have a look at the market itself first. I'm going to jump around your pitch deck a little bit, Rajiv. Yeah. So into the Neurosensum pitch deck. I want to start with slide 5. Now, there's 2 market slides in your pitch deck.
Yep.
And this one here is the gaps in the market research, and there's another market slide we're going to talk about in a minute. So these are the market opportunities, if you like. So the actual size of the market, I'm going to read the pitch deck titles because not everybody can see the slide.
Right.
But it says measuring subconscious responses, and you have here the total target market is $23 billion.
Right.
What are we talking about here? Is that the research market or what?
So that's a customized research market which has been done entirely by the claim-based understanding. So this is a global market.
That would be old Nielsen, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So that's the traditional way the research was done. And this size is only reflective of the larger enterprises. Okay, because a lot of SMEs, when they do research, a lot of that data is not published.
Yeah.
So this is mainly reflective of what larger enterprises are doing with traditional research companies. And that's a reflection of the traditional research size.
Right. So that's the $23 billion market, which you are addressing.
Which we want to ideally convert into neuroscience.
Right,
that's
neuroscience.
correct.
And neuroscience, you've got 3 different areas here on the pitch deck: EEG, eye tracking, virtual reality.
Right.
So these are tests that you would run, that research you would run for control conditions, consumers?
That's correct. So these are, some of them are controlled conditions, where EEG is kind of device which you put on the head, and without even asking consumers, when they're looking at advertising, you're trying to pick up the brain signals and making sense of that brain signal.
Yeah.
That which part of the advertising is lighting a bulb in a way. So through the entire thematics, we try to understand which particular advertising second is catching their attention. So where are they getting bored? Where are they getting confused? Where are they getting engaged? So that entire thematic or at which is 30 seconds or 15 seconds is broken down by us into second by second understanding. So that completely comes from the brain mapping, where we pick up the brain signals and we try to
How accurate is that? What can I learn? I mean, let's say, for example, you put that device on my head and I watched a Coke advert.
Right.
What are you going to learn from me feeding back those signals to you?
Right. So see, when you look at that entire Coke commercial, for example, so the key learning is that you learn that for each second, which are the part of the advertising where people are completely engaged, and where are they getting disassociated, or where are they getting bored. Unlike as brand, we have always been thinking that my stimuli is always engaging consumers. But the reality, if I ask you, Graham, how many billboards you remember seeing yesterday?
25,000.
Of course, you would have seen many of them. You don't recall any of them,
exactly.
right? Because it works as subconscious mind. So your brain cannot be engaged 100% of the time. So the idea is that to understand which part of the advertising where brain is completely getting bored or disengaged.
Yeah.
And that's the part that you want to improve. And you can't get 100% engagement because your brain will switch off, switch on, switch off, switch
So you
on.
can use this for like split testing, commercials and
You can.
messages and identifying what works, what doesn't work.
Absolutely.
But is it binary? Is it simply like engaged, not engaged? Or is it like, happy, sad, angry? Can I get those emotions as well?
You can. So what we do, we break it down into brain states. We call it as engagement, confusion, moderate engagement, boredom, and completely snooze, where you are completely, of course, you're not sleeping, but you're mentally and physically, you're not there. So we break down into those brain states. And when you mention happy, sad, angry, that's more from a facial expression that we code.
Okay.
But when it comes to the brain mapping, we give those 5 or 6 brain states, where second by second you can understand which parts are confusing, which parts are boring. So that's a complete system one thinking. But it doesn't take away from system 2, which is a conscious understanding, because we still need to ask consumers what are things that they're liking, how they're comprehending the message, and we try to make a story of both the set of the data, which is system 1 and system 2.
So system 2 is the survey.
It's a claim data.
Okay, excellent. Because that brings me to the next market slide as well, which I think sort of ties nicely in with this. So we've obviously talked about running the subconscious survey data, if you like. And then on slide 9, if I can just jump forward, this is... Are we looking now at the survey side of things? Just so I make sure So you're talking about, this is traditional survey research.
Right.
Is it $60 billion?
This is what we are estimating.
Yeah.
So that is the estimate size of the SMEs market.
Yeah.
So of course that's an estimation because there's so much of small and medium enterprises that do research, but a lot of that is not captured by the proper institutions. So we are estimating that SME market might be around $60 billion, which is completely, again, is a survey based. Yeah.
What's SME market mean? Does it mean accessible to startups, for example?
Yes, it's accessible to startups, small and medium enterprises.
Yeah.
So they're also doing a lot of research, but a lot of that is not getting captured in a proper manner from a calculation perspective.
And how would that research best apply? Is it, here's my marketing messages, or here's a product, or here's our website? You need some asset that they can interact with, right? Or can you survey them just with basic questions without having a product? What works here?
Right. So I think what we are talking about is a second revenue stream, which is Surveysensum. Now, Surveysensum is a software, while Neurosensum has been very much a consulting service. So let me just tell you a bit of history, how Surveysensum emerged. So when we started Neurosensum and when we were going to the clients with neuroscience approaches, now one thing that we realized that larger enterprises are loving it, but when we took it to the startups, when we took to the mid-sized enterprises, they loved the concept, but they could not afford it because consulting overall has been expensive. So they came back to us that, can you give me a software which can help me to do research by my own, but it can do it in a real-time manner. But can this software be completely AI-driven? As in that, if I want to do a product testing or my website testing, I just need to put a query into a software, and that software automatically helps you to give a survey or a design without you making the entire questionnaire by yourself. So that was the concept, that how it emerged, where a lot of SMEs, they were not very savvy in terms of the research skills or market research skills. So they wanted a software like that, which can help them to create surveys which can help them to get the data from the consumers and can also help them to get everything real time, including the reporting. So as in that it's a machine that you ask a machine, give me a survey for website testing, and it gives you a survey. And you ask a consumer to fill that information, data comes back, and then you again ask machine, can you give me a report out of this? So without you manually crunching the data, machine is intuitive enough to give you the complete reporting itself. And on top of that, I think the concept was, can the machines write the report for you without you writing it manually? So that's how Surveysensum entirely came into picture. So it still is a claim-based, because what I realized that neuroscience might not be affordable to the SME market, but there still is a big market out there that we can possibly get into with the claim-based service as a software, and eventually move them up the ladder with the neuroscience as they get more used to the market research.
Right. And that would make more sense when they're a bit more focused on what their needs are, right?
Right.
At the early stage, a startup really doesn't know. It's really, testing a market.
Correct.
In many cases. Would that work for, say, us as a company? If we were a podcast media house, how would we use it? Because, we don't have a product I can show somebody apart from they can look at it online or listen to it. Could it work in that context?
Yeah, it will. Let me give you an example. You also have people coming to your studio.
Yeah, like yourself.
Like me or the venture team we just went out.
Yeah.
So imagine if you want to understand a customer experience, right? I mean, the world is moving towards a completely customer experience. You want to understand what they think about Pitch Deck and what they think about the entire podcast that you're doing. Did they like the entire experience of it? You just need to send a survey to them using our software. You can just create a quick 3-4 questions. You have the database of those individuals. You can send an email to them. They reply to you. They get back to you with the entire feedback. And the software helps you to do the entire storytelling automatically. So the entire reporting software generates for you, and it also tells you the story.
How does it do that bit? I'm fascinated by that, because storytelling is a very human thing, right?
Right. So for example, one part of the story is entirely text analytics. For example, if you ask me a survey, say if I go out from here, you can send a survey to me, Rajiv, how was your experience with podcasting? So you can have questions which can be rating questions, which is 1 to 5, and you can ask me an open-ended question, which is completely verbatim based. That can you tell me how was your experience? So I can write a text to you. But for you to read 1,000 people text is so difficult to read, and so difficult to interpret. You have to go through each by one. So that's where the entire text analytic comes in, which is a machine learning algorithm. So this entire text is fed into a machine in a way, which gives you the entire themes. That these are things that people are liking, and the sentiments are positive or negative. So this entire text gets into a machine learning algorithm. It's called NLP, which helps us to create these entire themes. These are things that they like, which can be entire voice quality. But these are things that they don't like. So which is the entire bucketing of those insights, so that you don't have to go through individual responses one by one.
I've seen that. I mean, if I can understand from a consumer perspective, in websites like, for example, and correct me if I'm wrong, there may be like, not Airbnb, but like a TripAdvisor type website which buckets those key phrases.
Yeah.
And it says, this hotel was popular and 120 people talked about the front desk or the breakfast, for example. And what they're doing is they're using some kind of machine learning algorithm to bucket similar kind of phrases together. Anything that talks about the breakfast in a positive way gets bucketed here, and then that becomes like a snippet that they can send out. Is that kind of where we're going with that, in sort of crunching all that information from research?
Yeah, absolutely. So traditionally we were taking weeks to do that, which is manual coding. Like the example that you gave is a perfect example. So it's similar methodology in the market research domain. So that's what text analytics is all about. But the future, the way we are dreaming the future to be, when these consumers, they give you the data, or your clients, they give you the data, that this data can be enormous. So that PowerPoint or charting that we have been doing for years, the idea is that can machine automatically give you the summary. So you don't have to interpret the chart yourself. Machine interprets that, on the average, customers are not happy with sorry to say, in case if they're not happy, but they're not happy
the coffee
because of
outside, for example.
So they're not happy because the coffee outside
Yeah.
was not good enough, right? So you don't have to interpret that data anymore. Machine is able to interpret the data and tell you a
Yeah.
story. So that's where we are moving the entire software to be.
Yeah.
So-
When a machine does it produce a different result to a human being? Because, and you were doing this for years, I'm
Yeah.
sure. And I guess, I wonder if you were producing that for a client, the fact that you're getting paid by that client might change the dynamic a little bit. I'm not saying it compromised your professional credentials, but, you may have softened the message in a way or interpreted it in some way. How is it with the machine running? Because it's just blunt, isn't it? This is
Right.
how it is.
Absolutely. So traditionally, it was consultants running the analysis for you. So it doesn't change it in a big way. Because when you go to Nielsen or any of the traditional research companies, when they're giving you data, they're giving you consulting. So they're writing summaries, they're writing recommendation. So the idea is that human brain can be fed into a machine, which auto learns over a period of time and can generate that for you. So that's how you make things affordable. You make things affordable by bringing technology into picture, which can help you to save a lot of time. You can do it faster, you can do it cheaper. So again, I think it's this entire human brain being fed back into an algorithm, which is getting trained again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
So that if I'm writing a command, can machine match my thinking of writing commands? So that's where the external expert consultants are helping the data science team to write these entire stories.
Yeah. Okay. We'll talk about the clients you've got on board as well and the journey. This is where it gets interesting. We jump back into the pitch deck and I think it's slides 6 and 7. Let's go back a little few here. You have a very good slide here. That's what every investor wants to see on the pitch deck. Some, lots of logos, some great clients here as well. Unilever, Reckitt Benzica. For example, you've got Benckiser, all the, the key names here. What is going on here? You have hustled and won a lot of business for your company. What is the message that's getting people on? What are you finding that you must be taking business away from traditional research companies, right? What are you saying to them differently? And I guess in a way, they may be a little bit skeptical about your offer as well, because it's kind of a little bit Star Trek in some people's ideas, isn't it? So how do you sell that to large corporates, and what's working for you at the moment?
Right. So see, the slide that you're showing is our first revenue stream, which is neuroscience. Because Surveysensum just got launched a month back. We are still building the pipeline for it. Now, Neurosensum got launched in 2018. So the entire pitch to the clients is, I'm going to give you much more than a conscious mind. So I'll not say it was a difficult sell to a large extent, because that has been the latent need from the marketers.
Yeah.
The only question that you ask me is a question that people ask: how accurate is it? Right. So that's the only question which always comes: that is it really accurate? Can I trust this entire methodology, or are your algorithms accurate enough? But the entire pitch has been, I'll give you more than what you get in a conscious data, almost at a similar price of a conscious data. So I think this is where the entire education is coming in. That I'm not going to charge you really hefty amounts, possibly 10 or 20% premium to what you have been paying traditionally, but I'll give you some new insights on top of that, which is the entire system on insights. And
how does that change client behavior? Because I'm always interested in, there's one thing giving people insights and them learning, but then how do they, when they feed that back into product development, market testing, do you see a change?
I do see a change. I think not every time, but I've seen a lot of changes when it comes to advertising testing that we have done using neuroscience. When it comes to packaging testing, UX designs, website designs, I've seen a lot of inputs being taken by the clients in terms of refining their stimuli or refining their strategies. But as you rightly said, that not everybody will jump on the board straight away, right? But when you have the big names jumping on, it becomes easier to convince others then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you've got a whole bunch of big names there. You've got some of the best.
In Jakarta, yes. But no, we need to replicate that success in India or Singapore. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's even more exciting, isn't it? Now you can just go out and expand across these markets. There is a slide after this about your journey and where you started and where you're heading to. So you launched Neuro in Indonesia first.
That's correct. You
moved to Singapore just recently. What's next? I mean, 2020 onwards, where do you see this going? What is this, what does your growth curve look like? Is it now just a business where you just need to add on lots of account managers and salespeople? Or do you need to build new technology to get to the next step?
Yeah, so when it comes to neuroscience, I think the one part is whatever we have created, can we expand it further? That's a basic first step, which is to expand in Southeast Asia. That's the thing that we're looking at right now. I think when it comes to technology, there are, of course, from neuroscience perspective, facial expression is something that we're looking at right now, which is especially for the Asian faces, which might not be as expressive to get the emotion. So that's something that we're working on right now. Can we get the finer movement of Asian face, which is not extremely expressive? So that's something that we want to add as a part of our product portfolio.
Are you able to test that in the wild, so to speak? So I can imagine testing, obviously, with the EEG device in a control condition in a lab or in an office or whatever, yet like testing actual interaction with products. You can imagine the classic cases like in store,
right,
and people browsing a shelf,
right,
eye tracking. I think that's already happening now.
Yeah.
But facial recognition and feeding that back in to say, okay, these weren't test subjects. These are real people buying off the shelf. This is how they reacted to your display, which is UX in the real world, right?
Yeah.
How far are we into that situation? Is that happening now? Are you able to do that as a part of your plan?
I think it's happening right now with some of the companies I know. I'll not name those companies, but yeah, it's happening right now where I think that's where we plan to get into, which is the entire in-store moment capturing, where you've got cameras and nothing. But again, I think there has to be a lot of privacy issues which comes around it, which we have to think how we work around that with the retailers, for example. So yeah, but that's what the idea is in the future, that how can we understand the complete insights inside the store, which is using the facial expressions, not only the eye tracking.
Yeah.
But that is where the future might move towards. Yeah.
It can also then open up a lot of opportunities, right? Because then you have all of that in a movie theater,
Right.
for example. How do people interact with big screen advertising, or even actors in scenes, for example? How do they interact with that? I know a lot has been done in controlled conditions in that, but it'd be fascinating to see that let loose on those in the wild environments. Then the opportunity is 10x. Right?
That's correct.
Okay, I'm doing the sales pitch for you here.
You are. So right now, I think what you're looking at, even virtual reality kind of replicates that, but in a controlled environment.
Is that, okay, help me understand that then. So you would put the headset on somebody and they would go into a store and then browse in the store as if they were going into the real world?
Yeah.
Okay, and can that replicate as much of those interactions and emotions as it would normally?
Not exactly 100%, but but the idea is that if you tell a store that I have got these 3 new packs, I want to test it out in 7-Eleven or any of the store, they're not going to allow you to do the testing in those stores. They've got 4 of them. But then one option is just show the pack just like that. Second option is, can you try to make it real when you know that you can't do it in real? So if you've got 4 new options and stores are not going to allow you to do that. So the virtual reality is not reality. That's what's called virtual reality. But it tells to replicate as much as a reality, which still allows you to do far more many things that you would not have done it in a normal scenario.
Yeah. Does it allow the kind of level of complexity needed to make that authentic? So let's say I'm an automotive manufacturer and you talked about UX design. Let's say I want to talk about the design of my cockpit, so to speak. And even if we keep it easy, we can just focus on the dashboard and the display, or the iPad that sits there in the dashboard interacting with the car, for example.
Right.
Can we design that enough such that we can get real feedback from that it's for the user real enough that they're invested in that whole sort of scenario?
We have done that for, at least for the packaging, we have done that. We have done that for some consumer good companies, some of the multinationals we have done that, including Deno and Dutch Lady. We have done that where their entire picture was converted into a 3D graphic. So we created almost like a shelf where consumer could immerse into a shelf. They could pick the product.
Yeah.
They could rotate it. They could see it. They could put that in the basket. So and along with the music. So we provide them the headphones as if they are walking into Indomart and there's a music out there. So we could replicate that entirely.
Yeah. Is it real enough though? Because you might say because you can't feel it.
Yeah.
that maybe it's all like fun, so I'll do whatever. But
Right.
you know, when I'm in the supermarket and I'm busy and the kids are like playing up and I've got to get home by 6 o'clock, it's a different environment.
Correct. So as I said, it's not as real as we want to be. But this is, I still say that it's a better solution because if you've got 4 new options,
Yeah.
one option is to still do it a claim base that I ask you and you tell me without giving an environment. Second option is to create that environment, like, as if that you're building 7-Eleven, and imagine how costly it is to build that environment as in control. So this somewhere sits in between. It might not be as real as we want to be, but it still is better than what we have been doing for years and years.
So it sounds like what you're suggesting is you're building different data points. You would maybe have that experiment combined with the claim-based conscious surveys, combined with some other technology, for example, and you would then bring all that together for a client.
That's correct.
You say it's not. You can't just look at one. And in a way, you're almost having to think like a startup here, doing lots of validations. There's not one answer, but you're sort of trying to, tighten the net a little bit, pull it in a little bit, and trying to get to the answer.
Absolutely. So I think you have to look at both the conscious and subconscious. For example, if I ask you 2 + 2 gram, give me an answer. It's
not
easy,
5.
Right? Not 5. So in your subconscious mind, you got 4.
Yeah.
But if I said 25 multiplied 17, your subconscious possibly might signal to your conscious mind. Yeah. So that's why both are important, right? I need to understand what you're rationalizing. I need to understand what you're thinking.
Yeah.
So it's not this or that. It's a combination of both.
Great. I'm still working it out, by the way. I'll come to it in a minute. So the second one, not the first. Right, okay. I think it's important that we have a look at your team and the journey from here on inwards as well, and especially, what your future looks like, because you've got a good track record already.
Right.
You're from the industry. You know what's broken.
Yeah.
You've got a good client base. You can see the meta trend happening, which is, you're slightly ahead of the curve in that sense. Do you have the right people for the job? And do you have enough funds to get you there? Right. Because, if you find the answer, you need to scale fast before somebody else copies it, right?
Got it.
So let's have a look at the team itself. So if we can jump forward on the pitch deck, right towards the end. So 45 people in the team at the moment. You're the owner of the company. There's a co-founder, or are you just the sole founder?
There's a co-founder, yeah.
Okay. What are your backgrounds? Are you more on are you the front-facing part of the co-founding team, or are you more the tech side? Who's making the widget and who's selling it?
Right. So that's also interesting that we have got 2 companies that we are the founders of. So my co-founder, he's a non-executive director in Neurosensum.
Yeah.
But he runs another company called Sensum. So that's a big data analytics. So there are 2 companies that we have co-founded together. So I take complete decisions on Neurosensum while he takes complete decision on Sensum.
Are you a non-exec on?
I'm a non-exec there.
So you got like a bit of balance.
Right.
Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah.
And how does that work in practice when you work together? Are you sort of separate day to day, or are you like very much, in each other's businesses, in the fact that when you do a project, it involves both of you?
Normally it works in a very standalone manner.
Yeah.
Because these are 2 completely different domains. But sometimes the clients can be common. A client might need market research or possibly a software that we like Surveysensum, but in some cases they might have a AI solution, a big data solution that they might need. In that case, we do help each other, but we don't get into each other's day-to-day operations. It's more at a strategic level that we work together and help each other.
Okay, understood. And you, in terms of how it's organized, your headquarters are here in Singapore. You have, I think, the pitch deck's not there, sorry. Okay, so just under 20 people in India.
Yeah.
26 on the commercial side. Are they based all over? Okay, I'm just having a look. I'm just looking under the Indonesia, Singapore, India.
Yeah.
Are they salespeople? Are they account managers?
Yeah. So it's a mix of salespeople and account managers.
Yeah.
So while India is a complete back-end office for us, but we recently started commercials in India just a month back. So the entire data science team, engineering team, digital marketing happens from India. While Indonesia is where we have the account manager and commercial team. Singapore, there are 3 of us. In fact, 2 of us, 1 person is joining us soon. So again, that's the same account manager plus sales team.
Right, okay. But you have a model that worked in Indonesia. You're now replicating that elsewhere with a
Yeah.
little bit of a local twist. It sounds like it is a kind of model where if you can open a market, you just need to put in account managers.
Yeah.
And, the clients are going to be slightly different, but, Unilever in one country is not too dissimilar from another country.
Right.
So, expansion is not going to be too much of an issue there, right?
Yeah, I think expansion, when it comes to Surveysensum, which goes to the mid-sized enterprises, these mid-sized enterprises can vary by country to country. So that's where the expansion can be a bit different per country, but larger enterprises a lot of them can be similar. Some of them can be dissimilar.
Yeah.
So with Surveysensum, there's a lot of more mid-sized localization selling, while with Neurosensum, it's more like regional accounts and big accounts. Yeah.
Okay, good. On to the last slide,
Which
funding.
If I can request you not to show that number.
Okay, we're not showing the funding slide. So are we allowed to talk about whether you're fundraising or not, or where are you with that stage? So just maybe give us an overview.
Right. So we did our seed round. That was in February 18. That was from one of the biggest investors in Indonesia, Alpha JWC. Very great team to work with. Then we just did Series A, which is a month back. That was SIG Asia.
Mm-hmm.
So of course we are still fundraising a bit more so that we can go aggressive in getting a good market share in the region. So yeah, we are still doing a bit more fundraising now. Yeah.
Right, but it's not your main focus right now.
I think our main focus is expand Surveysensum and Neurosensum into the countries.
Yeah.
So that's what our main focus currently is.
So I guess a big part of why you're here today is get the message out there.
Yeah.
Who are you looking to appeal to? Because obviously investment's good.
Yeah.
Obviously you'll take conversations with people if it's
Right.
relevant and they can add value. But more maybe the people who can help grow the team and those talents that can help you either on the tech side or the account management side. What are you looking for at the moment?
I think what I'm looking for right now is, of course, reaching out to the clients. I think with neuroscience, of course, that's one bit to reach out to the larger clients. But the entire volumes comes from Surveysensum, which is to help completely revolutionize the way mid-sized enterprises are doing the research. So the idea is to reach out to both mid-size and larger enterprises, of course, with slightly different offering. So that's one part, which is, I think, is a key thing, which is constantly grow the business and get the sales. Second part, of course, is to reach out to more future talent that we can have in our company who can help us to grow the company and make it much bigger.
What would they be? What kind of backgrounds? Research? Selling research? Nielsen?
No, I don't believe in that personally. I think when I look for people who are in the team or who are directly working with me, I look for people who have the entrepreneur mindset, who can roll up the sleeves, get their hands dirty. Doesn't matter whether they come from research and non-research. I think right attitude is more important than anything else. You can always train the skills.
Absolutely.
Yeah, be it sales, be it marketing, be it research. Everything can be trained. I think it's all about willingness to go extra mile and think that this is your company. So that's why I think I'm a kind of person who likes giving ESOPs or ensure that a lot of people at the top level who are ready to roll up the sleeves are getting shares in the company. And I think those are kind of individuals that we look for.
Absolutely, they're gold. If you get the right people who want to be part of something, want to grow something,
absolutely,
and believe in your vision, and want to help build it, those are the people you want. In what markets particularly are you looking at now?
So I think given that we are in India, Indonesia, and Singapore, I think in the last 1.5 years, we have expanded very fast.
Yeah.
So now the idea is to first go deeper in these 3 markets and get a good control or good market share. I think possibly only after 6 months and so we might look for one more country in Southeast Asia. We haven't decided which one. So of course there have been a big debate, is it Thailand, is it Malaysia, is it Vietnam, is it Philippines? Those discussions keeps on happening. I think right now we just want to do well where we are located and then expand somewhere in the region. Yeah.
Okay. But you'll be open to conversation with anybody in any of those markets, I guess, with a view to future, because you want that conversations to start early rather than the day that you need to open your office. Right. You want to have that sort of understanding of what they can bring and help you in that process as well, right?
So we are having a conversation with someone in Thailand right now, but I think that conversation is a bit early. But I think that might be possibly the next market we might venture into. Yeah, as you rightly said, we always need to have 6 to 8 months of lead time for the conversation and get the right person on board.
Great. Exciting times. The expansion of Neurosensum. You've heard it here, and hopefully this is the beginning. Hopefully there's more as well. You can come back and share an update with us, and maybe some of your, I think you're involved in some quite cutting edge tech as well. I think as a research guy, you'd probably like to share some of your insights and findings, in terms of what's going on in the market and what we've got to watch out for. Because, I mean, it's great that these things are happening, but I think we don't know what's possible at the moment.
Right.
And maybe you can share some of those insights in the future as well and help us understand what's happening at the subconscious level. Help us understand our own subconscious as well when it comes to buying decisions.
Right.
That's Rajiv Lamba, everybody, from Neurosensum. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today. Does LinkedIn work for you in terms of people reaching out to you? What's your preferred channel?
I think LinkedIn has been the best one. So that's my channel to reach out to people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good. All right, all the details in the show notes. Thank you so much, Rajiv.
Thanks, Graham. Thanks for the time.
Hi, Graham Brown from Pitchdeck Asia. Pitchdeck Asia, powered by Pitch Media Asia. Pitchdeck Asia is all about giving startup founders a voice. We are a show to help startup founders share their journey. So if you enjoy these stories, then why not subscribe to our YouTube channel? There's the subscribe button over there. Hit that subscribe button. Follow us on the journey. Leave a comment. I look forward to seeing you at the next episode.